Hello and welcome. Today we are diving deep into obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD. And I'm willing to bet that what most people think they know about it, all the jokes about being a little OCD, is really just the tiniest, most misleading tip of a huge, complex iceberg. So, let's go beneath the surface, shall we? So, I've got a question for you, and I want you to really think about it. Do you think you know what OCD actually is? Because for millions of people, it's got nothing to do with having a super tidy desk. It's a truly debilitating disorder that is so widely and often tragically misunderstood.
And this number right here, this just drives the whole point home. 7 years. Get this. That's the average amount of time between a person's first visit with a mental health professional and getting an accurate diagnosis for OCD. 7 years of suffering, all because the condition is so often missed. It's staggering.
So why? Why is it missed so often? Well, this quote from our source material just nails it. It's like that famous psychology experiment, right? Where you're told to count how many times a basketball is passed, and you're so focused on that, you completely miss a person in a full-on gorilla suit walking right through the middle of the scene. OCD can be that gorilla. It is hiding in plain sight, but our own stereotypes and expectations literally stop us from even seeing it.
So, for our first section, let's talk about that gorilla. We're going to explore just how this surprisingly common condition manages to stay so well hidden, even from the experts who are supposed to spot it.
And to understand why it stays hidden, we absolutely have to define the two core pillars of the disorder. See, to really truly get what OCD is, you have to understand this incredibly powerful and often misunderstood relationship between obsessions and compulsions.
Okay, so first up is the obsession. Now, here's the thing. Pretty much everybody has weird, random, intrusive thoughts sometimes. That's normal. But look at the second part of this definition, because this is the key. The clinical problem, the absolute crux of OCD, isn't having the thought, it's the desperate attempt to ignore it, to push it away, or to neutralize it with some other action.
And this chart just illustrates that dynamic perfectly. The obsession is that internal, nagging what-if voice. What if I left the stove on? What if I accidentally hurt someone? And the compulsion is the brain's rigid, desperate answer. I have to do something. I have to go check the stove 10 times. I have to tap the table 3 times to keep everyone safe. You see? One is the trigger, the other is the brain's deeply flawed solution.
So how do these two parts, the obsession and the compulsion, create such an incredibly powerful trap? Well, that brings us to what's known as the OCD loop. It's this vicious, self-reinforcing 5-step cycle that is literally the engine driving the entire disorder.
And to really get this loop, let's use a little metaphor from our source. I want you to picture an urge monster. Now, this monster, it feeds on compulsions. Every single time you perform that little ritual to get some relief, you're not beating the monster. Nope, you're feeding it. You're making it bigger and stronger and a whole lot hungrier for the next time around.
Okay, so let's break down how this monster gets fed, step by step. It all starts with a trigger. Anything, really. Then comes the intrusive thought. But here, at step 3, is where the whole system goes haywire, the catastrophic appraisal. The brain doesn't see the thought as just a random bit of mental noise. It screams, "This is real. This is dangerous. You have to do something now." That, of course, leads to step 4, this intense wave of distress. And finally, step 5, the compulsion, the ritual that brings a tiny, temporary moment of relief. And that relief, that's the poison. It reinforces the whole cycle. It teaches the brain that the ritual worked, which basically guarantees the loop will run again, even stronger, the next time.
So, when you see this really complex internal loop, you can start to understand why diagnosis is so incredibly hard. It's not as simple as asking, "Hey, do you wash your hands a lot?" Let's take a look at why it's so tricky and what a proper diagnosis actually looks like.
This is exactly why a simple checklist just doesn't work. Someone with OCD might not even label their own mental rituals as compulsions. To them, it just feels necessary. Meanwhile, someone with general anxiety might read the questions and think, "Yeah, I worry a lot," and check all the boxes. A true diagnosis isn't found by checking boxes. It's found by listening to the person's story, their whole narrative. How does it impact their day? What's the logic behind their behaviors?
Okay, so we've seen the trap. It's a powerful one. Now for the good news, how do you break out of it? This brings us to the gold standard treatment for OCD. It's called exposure and response prevention, or ERP, and it is the direct antidote to that 5-step loop we just talked about. So what is ERP? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's about deliberately and safely
facing your fears. It's a process where you systematically expose yourself to the very thoughts, images, and situations that trigger your obsessions. And then, and this is the hardest and most important part, you prevent the response. You make the conscious choice not to do the compulsion. The goal isn't to feel good. The goal is to learn that you can tolerate feeling bad.
And this is exactly why ERP is so incredibly counterintuitive. Think about it. Most advice for anxiety is about calming down, right? Deep breathing, reassuring yourself. But in OCD, those very coping skills can actually become new compulsions. ERP flips the script. It says, don't fight the anxiety, don't try to calm down. Instead, you learn to sit with it. You learn to embrace the uncertainty. And by doing that, you starve that urge monster.
This quote right here perfectly captures the mindset of ERP. The goal is not to convince yourself that your house won't burn down. That's just giving yourself reassurance, which is another compulsion. The real goal is to get to a place where you can sit with the uncertainty. Maybe my house will burn down. Maybe it won't. I don't know for sure, and I'm learning to be okay with that. It's radical.
So let's be crystal clear about the end game here. Success in ERP does not mean you will never have another intrusive thought again. That's not realistic. The goal is to fundamentally rewire your brain's response to those thoughts. It's about teaching your brain over and over that these thoughts are not threats, they're just noise, and that you are absolutely strong enough to tolerate the discomfort they bring until it eventually fades all on its own.
All right, we've covered a ton of ground here, from the tragedy of misdiagnosis to the mechanics of the OCD loop and the counterintuitive power of its treatment. So, if there's one thing you walk away with, what should it be?
It's this. OCD is not a joke. It's not a personality trait. It is not about being neat and tidy. It is a neurological disorder that is fueled by an intolerance of uncertainty. But here's the most important part. It is absolutely treatable. And by understanding what OCD truly is and what it isn't, we can start to change the conversation, and hopefully we can help shorten that 7-year wait for millions of people.